Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tiger's Den Live. As always, I'm your host, Will Figueroa, and we are joined by the founder, the mastermind behind Tiger's Den Live, the Tiger framework and the mindset, Paul Routhier. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. I always love how much fervor you put into that. That's exciting. It's extreme. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm doing great. If I was doing anything but great, it'd be disappointing. But thank you.
Yes. Well, it's always good to have you, and we're very, very excited to be joined by Diana Renee Taylor, the founder of Obsidian Transformation Strategies. Welcome. So happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
The reason why we're bringing Diana on is for a multitude of different reasons. We're really going to be focusing today on business relationships. It's February, it's the season of relationships. And so we wanted to figure out, well, how can we tie this in? And quite frankly, relationships really is the bread and butter of any business, right? If you don't have the relationships, you can't transact. You're not going to be able to grow and scale. And Diana is hands down the expert in all of this and then some. And so it's one of the many reasons why I wanted to bring her on into this episode. The reason that we wanted to start this off this way more than anything is because, quite frankly, Cleveland Rain has been doing really well. We've taken on uh, a bunch of new clients, and I want to go to Paul first and really kind of talk about how he kind of closes his deals because, quite frankly, he's so people focused. Let's talk about the last call that you and I were on, and really kind of closing that deal. It was an amazing, amazing conversation. What were some of the thoughts that you had going in on it, and why is it so important to be people focused, even in pitching, Cleveland Rain to a potential client?
Well, I think I don't even think it's a pitch. It's really not a pitch because it is so people focused. It is about aligning these companies to operate in the most efficient way possible, which requires such strong relationships internally. And that's really what we're helping people do is you know CEOs aligning with their vision, mission, and values, and then also making sure that their people are aligned with them. And it's amazing the value that that holds because everybody starts rowing in the same direction. So I'm really not pitching this. I was interested a couple of calls ago that the CEO got it right out of the gate and just basically said, I've forgotten about this. I've literally forgot. I've been so focused in my business that I haven't been working on my people and with my people. And so understanding and having strong relationships internally to the business is key. And so closing that deal really closes itself because the value is there. We don't have to prove it. People know it. They forget about it. It's a reaffirmation of why they're in business in the first place. Most people are in business because of people, and money becomes because of it. So reaffirming that and then putting guidelines and processes and strategies to amplify those relationships is a no-brainer for most companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how not only is it people focused, but I mean, you really involve family. You really involve a true understanding of who else is involved in some of the businesses that Cleveland Rain works with. This is where kind of Diana is like queen. She has such an innate ability to truly understand people's energy in the business, what's going on, what's missing, and quite frankly, the relationships both internal and external to a business. Diana, why is it so important for a business to understand where they sit in their relationships, both internal within the organization and then also external to maybe vendors, suppliers, and people they do business with? Why is that so key? What is so important that maybe some people are missing?
Yeah, I think that A lot of people, when they hear the word relationship management, they hear relationship, they might think it's a little woo woo, but relationship management is in a lot of terms in business. There's customer relationship management, there's business relationship management, and then there's just relationship management overall. We want to make sure that anytime that we have the ability to influence a relationship in a positive way, having empathy for the relationship, making sure that both sides win, ensuring that the people come first, seeing where people are coming from, understanding the reason that they're coming from, that it actually helps you have a better conversation. To Paul's point, he's talking about he doesn't pitch. He's just leading people first. He's having a conversation, figuring out how he can be of value, and that's really the core of relationship management. People don't realize that it's a form of emotional intelligence. That's really what a relationship management is. There's a You can Google it. It's everywhere, but it's like the fourth pillar. There's self-awareness, there's self-management, there's social awareness, and then there's relationship management, which kind of bundles it all together and ties it up with a bow. Because when you can communicate, when you can inspire, when you can influence people, when you can manage people, when you can manage conflict and conversation, then you have relationship management that's going to drive you forward, whoever you're working with, whether it's a colleague, whether it's your leader, whether it's your vendor or supplier, whether it's a potential customer. You're going to be able to have that influence to make things happen. It's the magic, I think, in all things business.
Yeah, I love that. My question, Diana, to you is, especially with some of the bigger organizations that you work with, you're known to be working with some of the Fortune 50, much like Paul, much like myself. And in your experience, oftentimes there's a new change. We have to implement something new. We have to implement something different. We have to. How do you deal with those relationships? What can someone walk away with today and learn from your experience in regards to, maybe there's a new piece of software, or maybe there's a new vendor, a new supplier? How can we manage that change and ensure that the relationships not only stay, but stay stronger, and even get stronger over that time of change? How can we ensure that relationship, and then how do we make it stronger when we have to implement change?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. Any company that is interested in making sure their change is led in a positive direction, because everybody has a change. Every company has a change, regardless if you're a small business, mom and pop, or Fortune 50. It doesn't matter. You're going to have change occurring within your business. If you want the change to go positively, which some people don't always pay attention to, then there are basic things that you have to have in place, and relationship management is one of those things. I'll say from my own experience that for any project that I've ever led, and from a change management perspective, if I did not have relationship management in place, the change would not have occurred as it could have. Because when you have the relationships with your partners, with people leading other teams, especially when people have different political reasons for the initiatives, teams have different goals or objectives in the initiatives. If you don't have that relationship management, you won't get the buy-in that you need to accomplish whatever your goals are. And as far as walking away, something people can think of, I think that it's listening. It
Mm,
sounds really crazy, but I just think that that culture of listening, that just building that into whatever it is that you're doing, will help ensure, one, your relationship management. Because if you're truly listening, then you're going to understand what other pain points are. You'll understand what they're actually needing to accomplish. And then you'll be able to see how you can connect the dots for them, even if they don't know how to connect it themselves. And so to me, the number one thing is listening. Relationship management is a communication game. It's all about the communications, and listening is going to be that top communication skill that you're actually able to make sure that you develop and you build. Because when you listen, people know that you're listening. They feel listened to. They know that you're on their side, and that even if you don't agree, that you took the opportunity to take their thoughts into consideration. They're going to respect that, which means they'll respect you when you need something further down the line. So I think that, again, it's a communications game. Listen.
yeah,
It sounds easier than it is, but it's core to everything making sense in the game.
I laugh because I see the smirk on Paul's face. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, no. I have a question, actually, as
Oh,
opposed to
awesome.
a statement. Diana, you and I both come from a project management background. So you're bringing in a group of diverse people into a project. You don't know half of them. You might know half of them. What's your first step in that project to provide a platform to have that relationship management? What's your first steps to accomplish that?
So for me, if I'm leading a new project, when we have our kickoff meeting, it's really about getting to know people. It's getting to know who you are, what you're coming from, where you're coming from. It gives me the opportunity again to listen so that I can start to recognize people's thoughts or feelings about the project. I get to have the opportunity to see if they're aligned with it, if they're excited about it. And then I take that information and then I always do a one-on-one. So for anybody that's part of the project team, I will do a 30-minute coffee talk, coffee chat, whatever it is, just so I can get to know that individual on their own, separate from the project. I want to meet with you. I want to talk to you. I want to understand you. And now I know how to interact with you. I know how you like to communicate. I know the way that you like to receive the details about checking in on your project. I know the way that you like to actually do your work. So I'm now able to gain that understanding. When we have the larger project meetings, I know how to speak to each person the way that they prefer to be spoken to. And it doesn't matter how diverse the group is, because some of my projects, I could have 20 people, doing different projects for their different business units. And I still know how to have the individual relationship with each one so that I can get the buy-in for them to complete the project as a whole.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I love that, Paul. You're known to do similar things, especially with the Tiger framework. How do you ensure what Diana is talking about? How do you ensure and talk to us about some of the tactics that you use in order to scale that, right? Because Diana is just one person, right? And she has a team, she has people and whatnot. When we go in as Cleveland Rain, how do we ensure that what Diana is talking about is scalable? You often talk about management versus coaches. Speak a little bit more about that and dive into what Cleveland Rain is really kind of known for.
Yeah. So like Diana says, it's now you're building hierarchy into your project, right? So this is about training and enablement and making sure that your executive team, for lack of a better term, has the same tool sets and is operating from the same baseline that Diana just explained. You need to ensure, as you say, that your team right below you is operating in the same way that you are all the way down the line. So as a leader, your direct report should be able to have as much detail on each member of the team to bring to you so that they can communicate that across. And if they have the ability to communicate that, then you know that same methodology is being used all the way down the line.
Yeah, Diana, you seem like you were like,
Yeah, it's so
what
true
comes up that
though.
you're like, absolutely.
Because to Paul's point, especially if you're a leader, your influence will go so far, right? So people will say, "Oh, Paul's great, but I don't like to work with the people on his team because they don't do the same thing." So understanding how to teach that level of consistency is really key. And that goes to Paul's earlier point. He talked about a company having its vision, mission, and values. I'm mixing up the words.
Hard to say.
But I think that it goes back to that, right? Because what type of culture are you trying to build? And if that's the culture, this becomes a standard behavior. And if the behavior is we get to know each other, we get to know, where people are coming from, what background, what way they like to communicate, any levels of change within the group. When you know the vision, the mission of your company, you're able to implement those things and build those behaviors in. And it can't just be one person living by those behaviors. It has to be from top to bottom, bottom to top, sideways, crossways. It has to be just innate in the spirit or the soul of every person working. Not only for people to do it, but also for people to correct if it's not being done, because it's so much easier to say, well, here we do this. And they'll see that clearly, and there wouldn't be the pushback. There's not as much fight. They're like, oh yeah, everybody does do this way. And they'll know that they can self-correct, or they'll take the correction better. So I think I'm listening. Yes, as a leader, you have to make sure that your people have the same type of goal in working with others as you do.
Yeah, speaking of correction, Paul, oftentimes when you're implementing change, and to Diana's point, right, you get a piece of feedback and maybe the person doesn't take it the right way, or say, well, actually, the way that we do it is this way. How do you manage that relationship? How do you manage that conversation, Paul? And then how do you in turn ensure that the rest of that team gets that information appropriately, right? Because sometimes it's just innocent. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way. What are some of the things that we could ensure that, or say, to ensure that a correction is not only implemented but really well received?
O&A, outcomes and affirmation. Um, when they're doing it the right way, and as your team is built out, you obviously train in processes and procedures, and then you concentrate on outcomes and affirmations. So you make sure that as a good project manager, you're walking through that project consistently with your team, and they are with their team, affirming when they're doing it right, making sure that the actions are targeted at the outcomes, and keep those affirmations going. If they feel they're going in the right direction along the way, they are not likely to change direction. Okay, if they feel like they can get it done faster, and this goes also, there may be a better way to do it. There may be a better, but if you have that level of communication, then you're going to receive that information that, hey, I think this is a better way to go it. You're going to analyze it. And if you find it to be better, then you work the rest of the team into doing it the new way. And then outcomes and affirmations. It's going towards the outcome. And we affirm that the new way is the right way. Continuous communication, as Diana put it, it is key to good project performance.
Things that go
At least he's got a smile when he's frozen out.
He's got a smile.
I think Will was completely frozen out at this point.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
You're back now. Welcome back. Or not.
Okay, cool. Question is, yes, no, maybe. Test 1, 2.
Sometimes.
Yes, no, maybe.
Well, you're coming now.
Sometimes.
Better now.
The question is, how do we fuel the relationship positively?
And who's the question to?
Is that to Diana?
I'm
going to let you take Diana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is a part of leadership that not everyone enjoys. If they don't just naturally and want to be a leader. Everybody can develop this skill, but leadership takes work, and it also takes a bit of a time investment. And a lot of the time, that investment has got to be in your people, and you fuel that relationship with that time. You need to know what's important to your person. You need to know why they are doing the work that they do, what's going to inspire them, what's going to motivate them. And that's why I think it's really cool that relationship management, it's the fourth pillar of emotional intelligence, because first you have to have self-awareness. And when you can understand like where you're coming from, your feelings, why you think the way you think, if you understand that, then it's easier for you to have self-management. So now that's the second pillar. Now you can manage those emotions. You can handle any frustrations or anger. If somebody's doing something the way you thought they should or thought they shouldn't, you can manage that better. And then Paul mentioned, maybe their way is better, and that's why the communication is important. But if you haven't developed that self-awareness, if you haven't developed that self-management, you wouldn't pick up on the cues about the fact that this is a better step, or that this might be something that's more needed for the group as a whole. That's that third pillar, that social awareness. You wouldn't be able to use relationship management to manage that conflict. And relationship management is hands down the key pillar to help you manage the conflict. So as you invest the time with your person, you've also had to invest the time with yourself and do the work for yourself so that you can then manage that conflict. You'll know how to speak to it without there being friction. You'll know how to speak to it to the person in the language that they need you to speak to it in. Help them understand. Again, you're connecting dots for people. And when you can connect those dots, you're able to take some of the feeling and emotion out of the outcome, and you can actually just focus on what the outcome was. And so I think that I think it's just an interesting point of emotional intelligence and relationship management as a whole. We lost our host,
That's all
but
right.
that's okay. I don't mind just being here with you, Paul.
I don't mind it either. I built this project. How could there be a better way?
That's not possible. But that's self-awareness. That ego gets in our way. And when you're self-aware, you can recognize, is this my ego speaking or is this something else? And you can actually look at it, I'll say more from an observation level instead of a participant level, and actually see the big picture and be able to say, you know what, they're right. This is a better way. I didn't know this perspective. Thanks for introducing me to this. Let's look at how we can implement this perspective and go from there. So
I'm interested if you've run into any projects where it's gone the complete opposite way. So where the project team took over the project manager because there was always a better way for it. How should a project manager, who's feeling a little weak in that area, what do you think? What's your perspective there?
yeah. So yes, when I started, I never had any intentions to do anything in project management when I got into that type of role. It was something that was thrown onto me. And when I say thrown, I mean I was just put into the fire. It wasn't even a project that was starting fresh. It was someone else's project. That person got a promotion. I got the promotion to their role, and I ended up getting put into that project, knowing nothing about project management. The role wasn't supposed to even include project management. So I'm just like, what do I do? Project management for dummies. How do you how do you make this work? I had no idea how to make it work. And there were definitely times in the first few months where I'm feeling lost, that people just kind of took over. Somebody that had a strong personality or somebody that hierarchical, they were higher in the organization. Maybe they just sat at the higher level than someone else did, and they innately felt like they deserved to take over the call because they were right and they've done this and they've done this before in this work. I think that the one thing that saved me, and it's true, really, is relationships. I've always been a people person. I've always known how to talk to people and put people first. So even though I had no idea what to do from the project management side, having that people first mentality that you kind of mentioned there, it ensured a couple of things. One, it ensured that other people had my back. So when I was getting stepped on, somebody else would step in and actually support me. And that gave me the confidence I needed to kind of keep going. So if somebody would cut over or they tried to take over the project, they'll be like, wait, guys, let's just give Diana a second to take this and do this. And that was all because I had built a relationship with that person. And they knew, because I was vulnerable, that, hey, I haven't done this before, but I want to make sure that I'm doing my best. So they had my back. And without relationship management, I wouldn't have had people to have my back to give me the chance to grow into the role. But it also means that I had to have tough conversations with people that were stepping on my toes, right? And a lot of the times these people were my senior leaders. They were not my peers. They were not my equals. They were not direct reports. These were my senior leaders that I had to learn how to have tough conversations with. And this again goes to, the leadership, how things should be done. I have to check with my leader, because I don't want to be like, hey, they're being mean to me. Can you go talk to them, right? You want to you want to be able to have the conversation. But I would speak to my leader and ask them the best way to introduce it with them, because they've had some type of business relationship with this person longer than me. They know how to manage this person. And then I take that information and have the conversation. But I will say this is probably not common, especially in corporate America. I think I was a little bit of a rebel, but one thing that I did do that I don't regret is I'm okay with being vulnerable. I'm okay with saying, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like this, and I really want this to be what is happening. I'm okay with saying that. I'm okay with saying, it makes me feel like, it's making other people think that they shouldn't respect me, and this is what's going to occur when this happens. I'm okay with speaking up and saying that. I'm not a big person on pretending that I know everything. I'm very okay with saying I don't have it all together. I'll even, and this is just like a trick when it's a senior leader, I'm always like, maybe you can mentor me after hours on a better way to handle this call. Can you help me on a better way to manage this project? And then allow me to do the role during the call, and you can give me feedback. And so that actually worked for my first few months into this brand new out of the blue project management role. So
well played.
Is that
Well,
is that considered managing up, Diana? Is that
yes,
what we would consider
it
managing
is.
up?
so
It definitely is.
so there's this line. There's companies that we're experienced in enterprise, and there's the SMB and small medium business, and there's kind of a divestiture. When you get in the smaller business, things aren't as process oriented. They aren't as well documented. I always say if someone's jumping off to be an entrepreneur and jumping out of corporate, they're jumping into a vacuum, right? Because there's just nothing there, where corporations, they've kind of got their processes and procedures all down.
Mm-hmm.
So project management at the small and medium business size is different than it is at the corporate side. So if you were opening a small business or working with a small business, and they were starting up, let's say they were starting to build some projects, maybe they're a construction company, maybe they're doing some sort of IT implementation, what would you say their first step should be to get started in identifying a process for a project management standpoint, identifying how they should run projects, identifying how they should get key stakeholders? I know that was a loaded question and a lot, but
I technically feel like I'm being interviewed right now, and I don't know how I feel about this interview process. I did not come prepared for these interview questions. What's going on?
It's because you're the expert. That's really what it is. It's really what it is. It's because you're the expert.
You're the expert.
Both seen it. We've both seen it. We've experienced it. I know in previous lives, you have been known to be the person who just makes things happen. You have an innate ability to be able to capture those skill sets of your team, understand the priorities, and you've always been someone that I know personally, that both personally and professionally, to just get things done. So it's definitely not it's definitely not anything underhanded or anything in that regard. It's because quite genuinely you have been someone, at least from my perspective for sure, someone who's always been known to just get it done. Yeah, and
it's
both in
and I'm just
enterprise and
interested
personally.
because a lot of the people who watch this are small businesses, and they don't know the first place to start. So less of an interview question, more of an informative question, because
sure, Paul, way to twist it. Way to twist it.
Curious minds want to know.
I think it's really funny, but the first thing that you said is probably, to your point, the biggest detriment to small businesses. Not when they're running the business, because most people they're tacticians, right? You know how to do your job, and that's not ever in question. You know how to do your job. The concern happens is when you're trying to grow, because you know how to do your job. Now you have to make sure that other people know how to do your job, so that you can step into taking on something else, something new, something bigger, whatever that case might be for your business. And the documentation part always is the first thing that comes up. It's always the first thing that comes up. And nobody, well, I won't say no, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that's just like, I've written so many SOPs before, it's ridiculous. But I can't say that it was like, I can't wait till this weekend so I can write some SOPs. It's not super exciting, right? Uh,
Yeah,
so
few and
so
far between,
nobody
right,
really
Diana?
enjoys it. Yeah, it's a thing to do, but it's not necessarily the most fun. So for people, especially small business owners, the first thing I'll say is as quickly as possible, you want to have the SOPs in place or your documentation in place. So it's better to start when maybe there's 2 of you or 3 of you than waiting until there's 15 of you to figure out, now going back and figuring out what everybody does and how to document the way that they do it. So if you have the opportunity, start as soon as you possibly can. And a lot of people think that they have to like sit and write it out. I'm a big believer in like, do it and document it, or do it and have somebody follow you and document it, or say it out loud and let yourself record it as it's happening. Like, okay, first I'm about to do this. Let your phone record what you're doing so that you can have, again, this is a Grant Cardonism, but creativity follows commitment, right? Like if you're committed to
Mm,
really growing and scaling your business, you just find a creative way to do it. So if you're a small business owner, hire an intern for free. Like get a college intern to come and follow you around to document processes. Whatever you have to do, have somebody just ask you, well, how do you do that? And maybe have a kid. Let them ask you what you do and how you do it. That can help you figure out all the steps that are
great
needed.
trick.
Oh my gosh, like to have them document, because you're like, oh, and then, but how does that work? Because they're going to keep asking. They're not going to understand what you're talking about because it's in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah.
It's in your head. And unfortunately, because it's in our head, a lot of us have big heads and we don't want to do this step. And we gotta like shrink our heads just a little bit, and share that knowledge with the world, share it with other people. But it makes your life so easy, because not only do you have a documented process, but you can bring people in that will be able to emulate you, or I guess mimic you, and they might not be you're you, right? They're not going to do it exactly like you do, but they'll be so close. It's like it's the 80-20. Like they'll be so close that you can focus on other things to grow the business. And so I don't know if there's like a trick. I think it's just one of the, be creative on however you can get it done, and commit yourself to doing it as quickly as you can. And as you add things, then make it just a standard practice. Oh, we're doing it. We're doing something new. As we figure it out, somebody be there documenting, somebody on the team, you, whoever it is, whatever you add, just keep documenting, keep adding it, tweak it as you need to. Then let somebody try it. What have you? I know, Will, you have to post this on Paul's LinkedIn. So you know that video where that guy's having his kids, he's like an engineer or something, teach
Yes.
how to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Hmm.
And they have to write the instructions down, and then he follows the instructions. Once you have it documented, then do that. Give it to somebody and see if it actually works out the way that you want it to work out, so you can make the adjustments. But I love that example because it just makes it how simple you have to be. One,
That's a great example.
left foot in front of right foot to walk, like whatever it is, right versus left, however you walk.
And to bring this full circle, that was a beautiful answer, by the way, Diana. That was outstanding. But to bring this full circle, since we started out on relationships, and that's what this podcast is about, having someone in your organization and having people that have documented process improves your relationship, because
Mm,
you are all operating from the same framework. A lot of people don't realize how important documentation is, but it really does bring the company together, because you're all speaking the same language, you're all doing the same things, and you're all rowing the boat in the same way. And I think it's really key. I find it very interesting that this conversation went from relationships to project management, but truly that is like the way it goes. Good documentation, good project management builds strong relationships, and it grows your company.
It really does. And I'll just add, in addition, it also stops frustration, because can you imagine if an employee has never had a documented process and you're just winging it with what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it? That level of resentment and bitterness and frustration that employee has, because there's no clarity in what their role is, what their next steps are, where they're supposed to go next, what their opportunities are. That lack of clarity is going to build frustration in your employees. And that's going to be a problem that you could have avoided if you would have just documented for them, this is what you do and how you do it. It's so much better to come in and be like, oh, this is perfect, they've got it all here, I don't have to worry about this, I know how to do this, I can ask this question about this if I need to, versus something different is told to you every day, different people tell you to do it a different way. It's a peace of mind for your employees, and then also for you, because you know that they're doing it the way that you expected them to do. So you created that baseline standard on how they're supposed to perform and produce. So
keeping the peace in the organization through documentation. Gotta love it.
keeping the
Yes.
peace.
Yes.
Everybody feels the love in the relationship
There
through
you go.
documentation.
There you
Yes.
go. Is that the key takeaway, Paul, today? And then we'll give Diana the last words today. I'm conscious of time. Is that the key takeaway here? Is really understanding what's involved in the relationship, document it. What's the key takeaway? What are some of the key takeaways for today, that if people are just starting, or maybe they're already in a medium-sized business and they really need to refine their relationship management? What are some of the key takeaways that they should remember?
Well, since we're so close to Valentine's Day, I guess I'll be Paul the Love Doctor.
I love it.
Communication is the basis of all great relationships.
Yeah,
And that's the key takeaway today.
Yes.
love it. Diana,
I
give
agree
us
with
the last
Paul.
words.
Communication is the basis of all of our relationships. And then just because I'm going to link what we just did, then you just write down what you communicated, and then you have it documented.
So whether if it's
And
a
there you go.
personal journal or whether it's an SOP, document what works. I love that. Thank you so much for your time today, Diana.
Thank
For
you.
anyone watching this, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking notes. Thank you for taking action on all of the episodes that we've had. We've had some amazing feedback on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere else that we post this and broadcast live. So thank you for those who watch. Thank you to those who execute against the lessons that have been taught. And as always, what's amazing about the people here today is that we could all be found at clevelandrain.com. Diana, myself, and Paul, we are absolutely happy to be able to help you, really help you become the tiger, right? Use that tiger framework in your business and really help you execute it and scale, most especially with everything that we've spoken about with relationships and so much more. So with that, I want to say thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate the time. I hope everyone has a great one. Thanks.